Quilters have very strong opinions about a lot of things, especially when it comes to using bed sheets in your quilts. I'm Michelle, this is my romantic tangle, and I love using sheets. I have been doing it for years and have never had a bad experience. And I use thrift store sheets. I'm not picky. If it is the color I want and it feels nice, I don't worry about the thread count. I check them carefully for damage, especially if it is not super duper dirt cheap. I will spread it out on the floor there in the store and check it over. Most of the time, they're in great shape. A few times I have found that the center is badly worn or that there were some holes or tears, so I've learned to look before I buy. Before I started filming, I kind of rampaged through the house and pulled out some of my favorite quilts to show you. Some of these are quilts I've shown here before. They all use sheets. My very first video on the channel, I was making a quilt with the AccuCut die cutter and 2 polyester sheets from the thrift store. This isn't new for me. This one is the quilt I made myself for my 38th birthday. And I was trying to make a quilt for the lowest budget possible at the time. All the fabric is thrifted. The white background of the blocks is a sheet. The backing is a striped sheet. I think this is the one. No, I thought this was the one that I used to dress for the binding, but it's not. This is Grandma's Donuts, a pattern I found in an old quilting magazine. The background fabric for the blocks is a sheet. The backing fabric is a flannel floral print that I found and absolutely love. It has faded a bit, but we've been using this quilt a lot for 15 years now. I don't think any other fabric I could have used would have held up much better. This is Birds in the Air. I made it forever ago. It was one of my very early quilts, and I backed it with a white sheet. We quilted it on the long arm at Mom's house, and we did get some kind of popping noises, but I know that a lot of professional long armers will not use sheets as backing. So if you're paying someone else to quilt your quilt, check with them what their rules are. I use the long arm and have not had a problem yet. I do most of my quilts on my domestic sewing machine. I have never had a problem with that. The only thing I've run into that was slightly a problem was hand sewing down a binding when I used the same polyester blend as the binding and the backing, and that was just a combination of 2 high thread counts that really put a strain on my fingertips. This is the quilt that I tied at the coast last fall, and the sheet is a polyester blend. If you could touch this, there would be no doubt in your mind that this is polyester, but look at the color and the floral print. And I knew I was going to back this with a sheet because it is huge. And I couldn't quite wrap my head around spending that much for yardage, but I found the sheet and it goes with the colors on the front. It looks like it was made to go in a quilt, and I just don't touch the backing that much. It's layered with other quilts. It's fine. If you have seen my video on my never-ending vintage embroidery quilt, the blocks of that use probably a dozen different vintage sheets because I was trying to get different fabric textures and subtle differences in color so the whole thing would look like it was real vintage embroidery pieces. If I can use a sheet, I will, especially if I have pieced the top with inexpensive thrift store fabric. Unless it is a very specific color scheme and a quilt that I really love, I don't go buy new yardage for those quilts. I have never regretted using a sheet. I have regretted using yardage to back a quilt that in hindsight, I really didn't like all that much. Sheets are inexpensive compared to yardage, especially if they're from the thrift store. They are big, so you don't have to seam or piece your backing. I tear the edges to straighten them out, and I know that's another unpopular quilting opinion, but it's also another hill I'll die on. I've never had a disaster yet. Now watch, I jinx myself and something terrible will happen next time I do it. Do you use sheets in your quilts? Do you have quilts in your house that other family members or friends have made that they used sheets? Thank you for watching. I'm Michelle. This is my romantic tangle, and if you are into quilting, cross-stitching, knitting, and thrifting and vintage, this might be the channel for you. I'll be back soon with more videos.